All right, we're joined by our good friend, the owner, CEO. Look at this man in the master shirt. What's going on here, Chris Phillips?
What's up, man? Life is great, man. Life is great. I'm actually headed to the barber shop right now, so gonna clean up this mane we got going on. But life is good, man. Content is rolling. We're right in the thick of baseball season and March Madness about to start. I think I've swung a golf club every day for the last 2 weeks. So life's really good when you're doing stuff like that.
Well, you look great, my man. So Chris Phillips, SEC Unfiltered, joins us. Chris, let me start off here with you. I just went on a tirade and an emotional roller coaster here about the thoughts of Nick Saban. When you see this and you hear this from the greatest of all time, the greatest coach of all time, Nick Saban, what were your thoughts about what transpired yesterday on Capitol Hill?
Yeah, I thought, obviously, and I heard your tirade, Blake, and I understand where you're coming from. And I think we can all agree the things he highlighted, a lot of the things they're real issues in college football. We know that. I mean, it does feel kind of hypocritical coming from a guy that has like a $20 million retirement or has like 4 of them. I don't even know what, has a Mercedes dealership, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it also feels hypocritical when a lot of these coaches that are complaining about it, and I thought our friend Jake Crane said it beautifully, these coaches have lost leverage. That's really their biggest gripe because they've been paying for players forever. I mean, this has been going on forever, but now the system is flipped on its head to where the players have more leverage than the coaches do, and they don't like that. Now, I'm someone that I believe that we should have guardrails up, or there should be some sort of rules or stipulations in place. My biggest gripe, Blake, with NIL was always the fact like there's no contracts. Like whenever we engage in a business dealing, if you and I do something, we're going to have some sort of written agreement where I'm giving you X, you're giving me Y, we're going to shake hands on it, we're going to have signatures, both of us go into the deal. You try to make trades in sports win-win. Not all of them are, but you try to make them win-win. NIL a lot of times doesn't feel like a win-win. It just kind of feels like we're blindly throwing money at a problem and hoping it fixes it. You know what I mean? So, I thought Saban, I thought he talked about all the stuff everybody else talks about. I guess, the most annoying thing is there's a lot of people in college athletics and college football specifically that are talking about the problems, but they're not doing a whole lot to fix them. So, I'm curious where we go from here. I thought it was just like the most random Tuesday news dump ever where I just get on social media and there's Nick Saban on Capitol Hill. I was going to ask you, how sick and tired of you are you of Nick Saban being retired?
Very, because I think that he continues, Chris, to make these statements because I think he's pissed off that this ultimately ran him out of the sport. But, Chris, I'm old enough to remember that Alvin Kamara was his 5th running back a decade ago. He can't do that anymore. So it pisses him off, and he's got Michigan, of all teams, clapping those cheeks in the Rose Bowl, so he's getting pissed off. I just look at this and say to myself, I understand what he's saying is correct. But to say that is what ran him out of college football, I also think is a joke. And, Chris, I got to tell you this, too. I call bullshit on 80% of his players talking to him every day about money. That's bullshit.
Well, most of the time, too, it's not the head coach that's dealing with that. It's the collectives. It's
right.
They're off of his plate. So, I'm sure those conversations were had. But, yeah, I think Nick Saban, and certainly, I know LSU fans aren't going to give him a lot of grace, nor Tennessee fans or Georgia fans or basically anybody who's not a Bama fan. He definitely comes off as the old man yelling at clouds. He comes off as grandpa, like, just shut up, grandpa, and go to the retirement home and just disappear forever. So, I definitely get it. Again, the problem is this, Blake. It definitely irks people, and I understand it wholeheartedly when people want to complain about a problem and highlight a problem, but they don't bring solutions forward to fix said problem. So, everything he's saying, we already knew. And other coaches have said it. It's just the fact that now it's Nick Saban saying it. So, I don't think just because he went on Capitol Hill and said a whole lot that much is going to change anytime soon. I know we're making small baby steps with college football with things like the calendar starting to get fixed and whatever, but I don't know, man. We just keep getting unnecessary rule changes and college football turning more to the NFL light, and I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know what the solution is with the NIL stuff, but certainly old man yelling at clouds. That's kind of what Nick Saban's evolving into.
I fully agree with that. Let me ask you this. I tweeted this out yesterday, and I'm interested of your thought. If you were named the college football commissioner tomorrow, what is Chris Phillips' number one thing that he changes?
I am creating a group of 5 playoff. We don't have one. I think it's the silliest thing. Like, why are we fooling ourselves, Blake, that Appalachian State is playing for the same trophy as Alabama? They're just not. Can we stop? Like, can we stop doing that? Like, even a school like, and I know they're in the Big 12 now, but like, even a school like Cincinnati, they're not playing for the same trophy. Georgia Southern's not. Troy's not playing for the same trophy. Like, we can just go on and on. And I think that's where the split is obviously eventually going to happen, where the Power 5 or this SEC Big 10 thing or whatever, they're going to break off in their own league. And I wish they would, because I'll tell you this, man, I've got a soft spot for Appalachian State, because growing up, we would travel to Boone, North Carolina. We would travel up there, Beach Mountain, Sugar Mountain, go skiing, and titles. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, this will never happen again, right? Because they made this jump to Power 5, or the next level. And I mean, I totally get why they did it for money, but we just got to stop kidding ourselves that Power 5 and G5 are playing the same level of football. That would be my first move.
I feel that. I think that that's a really good thing, a really good part. You know what I would do? I would legitimately, I would. The first thing that I would change is, I don't know if it would be that. I think that's a really good one. I think the number one thing I would change is everything that they did in reference to the clock, and I would put a guardrail on TV timeouts. Like how long?
Warning. Who asked for a 2-minute warning? I mean, like, talk about fixing something that doesn't need to be fixed. You know, like nobody who's ever watched a college football game thought it'd be better with a 2-minute warning. I mean,
you know, Chris, what's funny about that is they said last year that they're going to do a running clock so that they could speed up the game, only to add a 2-minute warning to add the time back that it was going to eliminate with TV timeouts. It's so stupid.
You know what NFL rule I think would actually be fun in college football and add to the chaos and the madness?
What's that?
The 33-yard extra point attempt. Like, I think that with college kickers, dude, you talk about chaos on Saturdays and gambling and what have you. I mean, imagine the amount of dudes that would miss that kick is scary. It's scary. Like,
I
dude,
know.
college fans would be losing it at their kickers like every week. So I'd be for that. That'd make things fun.
I wonder how many teams would go for 2, Chris, and get the ball in the 2-yard line.
Right? Yeah, there'd be a lot more strategy, no doubt.
Chris, you've been talking a lot about SEC football, and I want to get your thoughts. You know, I heard and seen a lot of y'all's content in reference to Missouri. Is Missouri the biggest sleeper team that maybe not a lot of people are talking about going into the 2024 season?
You know, it definitely feels that way, Blake. You know, I understand both sides of the conversation, because if you look at Missouri last year, as great as they were, and I mean, Brady Cook was fantastic, and what Cody Schrader did, and Burden and Weiss and all those guys, but Schrader were back. There were times their defense bailed them out. I'm not going to sit here and say that's not the case. So I think a lot of people look at what they lost on the defensive side, and of course LSU taking Blake Baker, and people think there's going to be this massive step back on the defensive side. But you know, and I think everybody's sort of just waiting to see, okay, this is the prove it year for Eli Drinkwitz. Like, was last year a fluke? Was it a magical, just one-off 11-win season, and they're going to go back to, you know, a 6-6 or maybe a 7-5 this year? But certainly I think they are a sleeper. When you look at what they're returning in regards to the, you know, the core nucleus of their football team, I mean, no matter how goofy or silly or whatever you think about Eli Drinkwitz, whatever you think he is, this is the same coach that took that group, you know, developed, got them to that point of winning 11 games and beating Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. And I don't care what kind of Ohio State team it was. They beat Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. So, you know, you return your quarterback in Brady Cook, who was fantastic. You could argue Luther Burden III is the best playmaker at wide receiver coming back next year. Getting Theo Weiss Jr. back, I thought was huge to compliment him. And I think there's not going to be probably another Cody Schrader, but I think they've got enough in the running back room and enough coming back on that offensive line to have a potent running game yet again. And then defensively, I mean, again, it's funny. It was another situation in which you had a group of five. I don't think he was a head coach. I think he was on that staff with Womack. Their defensive coordinator from South Alabama comes over. And so I think defensively they'll probably be better than most. Right. And also, too, what helps, Blake, the front half of the schedule sets up so good for them. They're going to be 5-0, 6-0. They're going to have half the season practically to work out these kinks and figure things out. So, I think definitely based off, like when you look at Ole Miss and Mizzou and the two teams that surprised, certainly they're catching far less up. And they also crushed in the portal. Let's not forget, Mizzou had a very, very good portal haul and a very good recruiting class. So, yeah, I think they're definitely being undervalued and slept on. And I think Missouri is right there in the mix with those teams that are competing for a spot in the college football playoff.
Sources have told me that you and Lane Kiffin are now best friends. He started quote tweeting you and everything. I heard y'all are best friends. Can you confirm this story?
Rat poison. So that was a pretty cool moment. That was neat. Lane Kiffin commenting on the Instagram and quote tweeting and all. And it's I know he's very interactive on social media. So I won't confirm or deny the reports. I'll kind of leave that leave folks guessing in that regard. But no, I mean Lane's one of the best, man. He's an electric interview. Obviously, I think he's more electric, obviously, on social media. But nah, man. I mean it's a great time to be the Rebels, man. It's I mean, I don't know many schools out there that wouldn't trade their head coach for Lane Kiffin. I got to be totally honest with you. I mean, I don't think there's a couple out there. I'm not saying LSU fans would trade Brian Kelly, but like if you're a fan of a middle of the pack SEC team, Florida, or special tier, you would kill to have Lane Kiffin, because at minimum, at least, he's going to make your program really, really fun to watch. He's a great personality. You're going to score a lot of points. And now, I mean, they're going to be, one of the favorites in the SEC. So, Lane's a legend, man. So maybe if we keep feeding that rat poison, we'll keep getting those interactions from him.
One more football, and then we'll end with baseball here before we let you go. Do you think that some of these coaches that are on the hot seat? So I'm going to ask you this, and I know that I probably shouldn't, but Shane Beamer, yesterday we talked about the hot seat track on Rufino and Joe, and South Carolina fans did not really like me so much and came after me. Am I wrong in thinking that Shane Beamer is got a very tough uphill battle this upcoming season?
Yeah, it's like I told you on social media, Blake. I don't know why you shook that hornet's nest, my guy. I could have told you. It don't take a lot to get them going, but you start coming at Shane Beamer's neck, boy, your mentions are about to be a mess. So you and Joe both, by the way. I saw one comment. It was like there should be an IQ test before you're allowed to buy podcast equipment.
Yeah, I saw that. I actually thought that was pretty funny. I thought that was pretty funny, to be honest with you.
That one, I got to give credit. That was actually pretty witty. But, I'm not willing to say that Shane Beamer's on the hot seat right now. I think for the first time in his tenure, his seat's warming up, though. And I think that if you're a Gamecock fan trying to say otherwise, I think it's wishful thinking, or you're just choosing to see it through garnet glasses. Here's the thing. South Carolina fans, I think, are more